It's been 3 days since the Galwan skirmish, and there has been talk of peace, but no signs of de-escalation. There have been military-level talks only for political rhetoric to follow. What really is happening in Galwan, and what is going to happen next? Let's try and answer some of these questions through some big developments that we have put together. First of all, the statement of the Chinese Foreign Ministry, it says Beijing has agreed to, quote-unquote, cool down the situation as soon as possible, and that China wants to maintain peace and tranquility in the border area. But here's something else that China has said. Do not underestimate, I'm quoting, do not underestimate China's firm will to protect its sovereign territory. So is China agreeing to de-escalate? Look at development 2. This is the Chinese definition of de-escalation, perhaps. The PLA conducting live fire drills in Tibet, flexing its muscle, showing off its so-called capability in border regions. There are tanks, missiles, drones, artillery systems, and enough footage of all of them. But guess what? No one is impressed, except, of course, the Chinese state media, or must I mention, the state-owned media. Have you wondered how none of them seem to be interested in finding out details about the Chinese casualty figure in Galwan? I'll get to that in just a bit. Let's talk about the blame game. And here's the thing. A country that is willing to talk peace and act on it will not be engaging in mudslinging. Peace and act on it will not be engaging in mudslinging. But China is doing exactly that. The Chinese mouthpiece Global Times is trying to peddle the narrative that it was India that started the skirmish. Too bad. No one is buying this too. The People's Liberation Army, PLA, has decided to take all of this a step further. They say that the sovereignty of the Galwan Valley always belonged to China. Basically, the PLA is accusing India of infringing into Chinese territory. Here's a suggestion. Once the Chinese army is done impressing its audience with the fire drills, maybe it could read some history. Development number 4 is that there is no development on the front of the Chinese casualty figure. It's been 3 days, but China has apparently had no time to reveal the total number of troops it lost. Of course, it knows the number. Every estimate says it's more than India. India lost 20 brave hearts, China 35 or more. And this is too tough for China to admit. I'll tell you what China is up to. Beijing thinks it is fooling the world. On paper, it is talking peace, but President Xi Jinping has a very different message for his army. According to Xinhua News, Xi Jinping has asked his troops to improve strategic management of armed forces. You see, this is part of China's strategic plan. It wants to play victim, push more troops to Ladakh, stall India's infrastructure projects, but China's bluff has been called this time. So coming back to the question, what is happening in Galwan? Here's a ground report.
I'm standing in Leh. It's around 250 kilometers from the Galwan. It's quite bright over here because the sun sets around 8:30 p.m. over here. This is the closest we can get to the flashpoint. The situation on the ground is really tense. The two sides have maintained communication. India and China are now talking at military levels. India is clear it wants peace, but if provoked, New Delhi has promised to give a befitting reply. What about China? Can it afford to provoke again? We will keep you posted with all the latest development from the ground. Here at Leh, I am Sachin for WION. World is One.